Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for everybody who's joining. My name is Bill Sheridan with Advanced Marketplace. Some of you may have been expecting to hear from Matthew Peoples today, who was in our original invite, but Matthew's a little under the weather, so I'm going to be taking over for him today. You should see in your panel the ability to enter questions in the Q&A panel so that at the end of the presentation, we can open up the phone lines, but we can also take those questions out of the Q&A panel if you'd rather write them down or just track them as you think of them. With that, I'm going to start the presentation. And again, the title of the presentation today is Keeping IT Relevant with Tech-Savvy Users. Hopefully you should be seeing the title slide for the presentation on your screen now. If anyone is having difficulty, please just type in the Q&A or the chat screen, let us know, and we can have our chairperson work with you on that. Okay, so let's dig in. Quickly about our company first, Advanced Marketplace. We are in our 19th year of business. We actually began in 1996 as an IT service management consulting company. We've obviously grown and expanded and broadened our expertise over the years. A number of the areas that we focus on are on the right side of this slide. It also shows our partners, but I think the most important thing to mention relative to our company and our background is that we grew up as a service management consulting today, and it's still at the very core of our business and in everything that we do. We've never lost that focus on service management. So in 2014, Forrester Research actually did a Forrester wave on ITSM solution provider companies in North America. And our company, Advanced Marketplace, was fortunate enough to be recognized by Forrester as one of the top IT service management companies in all of North America. We're represented by that red dot there. And very pleased with that because in that process, they talk to our customers, they evaluate our methodology. They looked at our market presence inside the ITSM space across many, many customers, and we were fortunate enough to receive the highest scores in 3 areas. And probably the key one and most relevant to our conversation today, as you see there on the right, is strategy for legacy modernization. And really what that means is that Advanced Marketplace has a very specific focus and methodology that we help clients today. And what we do is we really look at assisting them in migrating from what we determine or what we call legacy ITSM solutions and getting them onto a true enterprise service management platform. Because at the end of the day, once we get them on that platform, it simplifies and it rewards really the expansion of their service management request fulfillment processes, and it gives them a path to get to an area where they can provide those types of services well beyond IT. And in today's day and age with IT, tech-savvy users, it's really important that IT continue to evolve. So let's just talk about the agenda today. This is what we're going to cover in the presentation. We're going to talk about enterprise service management and define it, what it is, what it can be, and then from there we're going to move into why that's important to IT, which is a really key piece with all of the changes going on around technology, tech-savvy users, IT consumerization. And then before we jump into how do you embark on an enterprise service management initiative, we're going to take a look back. We're going to take a historical view of this concept because it's not necessarily a new concept, because it's important that we look at what hasn't gone right over the years so that we make sure we don't repeat those things. We're going to talk about why now. Why is today the time that organizations should be looking at getting on an enterprise service management platform, ESM for short, and really starting to provide more value to their organization. We'll cover exactly what that means for IT, how do they win, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you get started. So with that, let me talk for a moment about enterprise service management, what it is. And really what it basically boils down to is it is a focus by an organization to manage the broadest array of service requests that the organization can through a single pane of glass or a single portal, if you will. So what I mean by that is that end users can come into a portal, even email, an app, whatever the case may be, make a request of the business, and that could be IT, HR, facilities, it could be anybody, but make that request and that process be routed to the correct people in the organization in the most efficient fashion. And so when we look at enterprise service management, it's really the thought process of how do we manage all requests, all fulfillment in an organization, regardless of the department. And when we do that, what that means is some of those fulfillment processes, they may all occur on a single app. So if you look at the picture to the right in this slide, the little parallelograms, trapezoids there in blue, those may all be lines of business that are met through an enterprise service management platform where the entire process, all of the data and all is housed and the fulfillment is completed through a single app. However, it also makes sense often for certain pieces to reside in the best-of-breed app that the organization already owns. And so in this specific example, I show accounting or patient health information for a healthcare company. We may not want to build those into our service management platform, but we just may want to handle the upfront request, approval, and process of it, and then let those applications do what they're really good at. So that's the basic tenets of enterprise service management. And so when we look at what enterprise service management can be, right, where organizations can take it, the list you see here is really just some of the areas that our customers have taken their traditional IT service management platform and brought it to increase value in other areas of their business. So some of them very common ones are facilities or HR. But then as you get really thinking outside the box, we have organizations who have expanded into fleet, or you see even in the far right, universities who have actually built their student admission system on their service management platform. And so it really, for each organization, that solution set's going to be a little bit different. So this is where we start to talk about, so why is this important to IT? Okay, enterprise service management, the concept's been around for a long time. Organizations have traditionally tried to get outside of IT and do some other things on their ITSM solutions. So why is it important now? Why are we having this conversation today? And it really boils down to the logos that you see on the presentation right now and who your customers are hearing from. And so hopefully some of you guys recognize names like Salesforce and Workday and Box, NetSuite, and so on and so forth. These are all SaaS-based solution providers that are calling on your customers. They're calling on IT's traditional customer. They're calling on the lines of business directly and saying, hey, we can solve a problem for you that your IT organization may or may not be able to solve, or we can do it better. And what their messaging is to your customer is, hey, we're easier to use, we're very easy to do business with, we're subscription-based, predictable, you don't have to get capital expenditures, we can have you up and running faster, we're more agile, we're best of breed, so on and so forth. And so when we think about the fact that we do have tech-savvy users, not just individual users who might be familiar with using a smartphone, but lines of business now feel like they are more tech-savvy and more able to make IT or technology-based decisions without the input of IT. It creates a whole market for cloud-based providers like the ones on your screen. And last I checked, there's well over 400 cloud-based solution providers that are carving out a living in this space of calling on IT's traditional internal customer. And so that's why this is really important, because if IT is going to remain relevant, they need to be able to provide value to the organization that is at least as good as, if not better than, their competition. Their competition today has changed. So before we start talking about now, what does that mean? How do we go forward? We need to really look a little bit at the past, because we can learn a lot from the way things have been done in the past, because ultimately those challenges, those missteps, and sometimes just the lagging technology, that's what's created the market for all those cloud providers who are calling on your customers direct. And so if you look historically speaking, service management initiatives, implementations were very technology driven. It was very much of, okay, we bought a solution, let's do incident management. Okay, we're done incident management. Well, we really want to get a handle on change management. Let's implement the change management module. And so it was very much the view, if you go back 15 years ago, 10 years ago, was we bought a product, let's get the pieces of that product up and running. And that was also peppered with the challenges of an organization that got this new tool and said, wow, I can do all these things, so let's do them, and would build and build and build inside these applications and really focus more on what they could do rather than whether they should or should not do it. You take those things and you combine them in the recipe with legacy architecture. And what I mean by legacy architecture is we're talking about architecture where getting outside the box made upgrades difficult. It got you locked into a version and unable to cost effectively get onto newer versions, take advantage of new enhancements. We talked about the fact that getting beyond IT is not a new concept, but a lot of cases on these legacy systems, you actually had to break the application to get outside of IT, which is definitely bad. And the last part is around these legacy systems was customization and coding. And the reality is whether you were looking at a proprietary system or you were looking at something that was JavaScript or Jelly or .NET, historically speaking, if you wanted to get too far out of the box with a lot of these legacy systems, you had to do coding. And when you had to do coding, you had to rely on developers, whether you're internal developers or expensive consulting companies. And so very quickly, as we look at the landscape of legacy providers, what we find is that organizations found themselves trapped on older versions, trapped on expensive maintenance renewals for products they couldn't upgrade, trapped into relationships with expensive consulting companies just to keep the application up and running. And so as we look toward ESM in the future and we get prepared to talk about, well, why now, we need to keep these things in mind, because what we don't want to do is look at a platform, look at a strategy that's going to bring us right back down that same path. And so when you take the last slide, when you take that information on the last slide and we look at how, in general, different verticals inside the industry kind of fall out, what you really start to see is a picture that kind of comes together where you have organizations that potentially were very, very progressive and aggressive in trying to get the most out of their applications. And you see, historically speaking, obviously these are generalities. If you're in one of these verticals and you're on with us today, it may not be specific to yours, but in general, financial services organizations and retail organizations have been, historically speaking, very good and aggressive and progressive about trying to get beyond IT with their legacy service management solution. If you look at some other places, so for example, maybe in the public sector or even K-12 is one where they've stayed extremely vanilla and stayed very shallow in the service management solutions that they've owned. And in both of those cases, those organizations have ended up in a pickle. If you're on the aggressive, progressive side, the legacy systems, the legacy architecture, have had you in that very expensive, difficult to upgrade, difficult to take advantage of new enhancements field. So to the left side of the map, especially the upper left. If you're on the right side and you stay very shallow in the application and you haven't taken advantage of its capabilities, you end up often changing tools quite a bit because you don't get any realized value out of them. IT becomes defensive because the line of business starts to wonder, well, what is IT doing for us? And it's because the tools aren't achieving the level of automation or the expected service levels because they're not being used to their fullest. So usually about this time, especially if I'm doing this presentation in person, I've got somebody raising their hand going, well, what does this mean? Can I use my current solution to do enterprise service management? And so I'm going to answer that question as if somebody asked it, just to get everybody on the same page. And the answer really is, it depends. I mean, can I leverage my current solution? Well, you really need to be self-aware and do an analysis of your organization and the folks that are going to be making those decisions about how to potentially leverage your current service management solution. Because if you look historically speaking, if you have legacy architecture, if you have architecture where changes in configuration are going to impact the upgrade, that has been a challenge for a lot of organizations. So you need to analyze, okay, can we stay close to out of box? If you're an organization who loves to do coding or loves to build stuff and do the, I can do it, so I'm going to do it whether I should or not, if you have one of those solutions that will allow you to do that, you're potentially going to get into trouble. And there's a whole host of different bullets here that you can see on this slide that you really need to evaluate based on your current situation to determine, can I avoid these pitfalls with my current solution? And if I can, then maybe your solution will work for you to get beyond IT. If not, you may need to consider a different solution. One of the ones I would just touch base on, because a lot of those are very common, but one that's probably a little bit more of a newer bullet there for organizations is the solution is not portable. And what I mean by that, portability means that my service management solution can work in the cloud or can work on-prem. And this is a key one because as you look across the space of vendors out there, there's a lot of different strategies for how to go about fulfilling a cloud versus an on-prem offering. Some vendors have said, we're going to offer it one way. Other vendors have said, well, we have a solution for the cloud and we have a solution on-prem. Pick which one. We think as the space and the industry continues to evolve, that it's really important that that vision become a single solution that can meet on-prem or cloud depending on how your business changes, because ultimately today you may be an on-prem organization and say we don't trust the cloud or we're concerned about security or whatever the case may be, and 2 years from now that may change and you may want to go, hey, we're moving everything to the cloud, we're getting out of the infrastructure, we want it in a data center somewhere else. And what you don't want to hear at that point is, well, your solution doesn't work in that way, and so you're going to have to buy a new one. So that's just something to give some consideration to. So then the question becomes, well, why is this important now? Why should I look at doing this now? We've been on our service management solution. It's meeting our needs from an IT perspective. Why should I do this? And so there's three key pillars that are all converging at the same time, and today being that time, that really makes the argument to move to a service management mentality and strategy, an enterprise service management mentality and strategy, to do it now. And so those three pillars are what you see on the screen right now: user adoption, user experience driven, and technology. And so let me talk briefly about each one of those. And so the first one really ties back to our tech-savvy users and the fact that everybody, I'm sure, has heard of the term IT consumerization. The reality is that our end users of 10 years ago or 12 or 15 years ago who, they couldn't reboot a computer on their own, couldn't install a piece of software on their own, those times are gone. Everybody today owns a smartphone. They're used to installing apps on their own. They're used to upgrading apps. I would submit to you that in a lot of ways, a smartphone is the service catalog of most people's personal lives. So when someone wants an answer to something, whether it's get a boarding pass, make a purchase, make a phone call, do an email, text, post something about their life, or any host of other things, they go to their smartphone. So end users, for the first time in history, are technologically savvy enough to start using the tools that we can provide to them, like a single portal to go through and make a request for any type of need that they might have to do their job. The next one is the user experience driven, and this one is something that's actually a change that we've seen by companies, by the organizations. And what we've really seen over the last 3 or 4 years is that organizations now are starting to focus on, I'm concerned about the user experience, and I want to deliver things to the organization based on a service level, based on layman's terms for end users so that they can quickly see what they want, make that request, and then we can take it and fulfill it as quickly as possible. And that's really a change that's happened over the last 3 or 4 years as organizations have gone from, all right, I'm going to implement another process, I'm going to use another module of the application, to really start getting focused on how do I keep my user more productive, how do I make this services driven. And because IT service management solutions are have so many processes built in, they're just the logical point for launching into an enterprise service management strategy. The final piece of that is technology, and that's the piece that, quite frankly, hasn't been there for many, many years, and it's the piece that's gotten us in trouble over the years when we've tried to get beyond IT in the past. The technology just wasn't ready to handle the types of requests and expansion that organizations have tried to do in the past. And so today I would say that there are solutions out there that are portable. You can run them in the cloud, you can run them on-prem. There are solutions out there that have an architecture that will not break when you go build an HR application on it, or you go build a university admission system on it. They are platforms they're meant to be developed on, and yet they're going to protect you from messing up your upgrade or making it impossible. There are codeless solutions out there. Codeless configuration is a buzzword that's out in the industry today. I would say be careful. Not all codeless configuration is the same, but there are organizations out there that are extremely extensible and still codeless. So you will not get into trouble with custom code that's going to make upgrades difficult or just expensive in paying developers every time you want to do something. And the last piece is the platform play, right? So there are solutions out there today that are meant to be extended. They don't have to be an ITSM-only app or a CRM-only app, right? They're intended to take advantage of and go broader. So we talked about what hasn't worked in the past. We've talked about why now is the time to consider this. And so, this slide is the sister slide to will my current solution work for me? And so we really need to look at, from an enterprise service management perspective, a better design. Being aware of our organization and where we potentially could get ourselves in trouble, these are the key elements. Modern architecture, codeless configuration we've talked about. Mobility. Having a solution that has a strong mobile offering is important. So many users today are using their smartphones, they're using tablets, they're extremely mobile and moving around and building to building, floor to floor. So you have to have a strong mobile solution to whatever your strategy is going to be. Simplified pricing is another one. Over the years, IT service management solutions have kind of been per module price based on per module or per role, and that was just kind of a result of the development of ITIL and adding on pieces. But ITIL is very mature these days. There's absolutely no reason why someone's solution should have individual charges based on ITIL processes or individual charges based on different roles, whether you're a power user or a service technician or just an approver. It should have a simple, straightforward pricing module that provides you an entire service management platform. We talked about portability. And then the last piece is the integration. Integrations should be really looked at strongly when you're evaluating solutions, because the ability to move data back and forth between multiple solutions, particularly if you're going to embark on enterprise service management, is important. And you want to be able to do those integrations quickly, easily, and without having to do code. So those are all elements of a better design. You want to tilt those scales. I mean, ultimately, this is what happens. We start to move from a tactical perspective to a strategic view of the business when we do these things. And so there's a lot of payoff on this. I'm actually going to forward one slide here. And we're going to focus on specifically what enterprise service management does for IT. And the first piece is it gets the IT department having better lines of communication and a better relationship with the lines of business. So rather than your lines of business being frustrated and going to talk to Workday or Box or whatever the case may be, and then you guys get notified after they've signed a contract that, oh, now you need to integrate 3 other applications with Salesforce because that's what the sales department just bought. You're in those conversations, and I'm not saying that those might not still be good decisions for your organization, but IT's got a seat at the table to evaluate if that's the best proposal. So that then, by its very nature, it changes the perception of IT so that people start to understand the value that IT is providing to the organization. When you start to deliver service request fulfillment, the concept of an enterprise service catalog, it becomes more visible to the organization the value that IT is providing, because IT is no longer just having to react when something breaks and take the blame for it. Another piece is that an enterprise service management strategy and initiative can actually be very lucrative from a cost perspective to your organization. Being able to consolidate the number of applications, remove annual maintenance from numerous applications, and deliver those through one application or through less applications helps the organization financially. And then, again, providing IT as a go-to person for these different needs that an organization may have. We have a client or several clients, matter of fact, who have settled on an enterprise service management strategy. We were able to help them with that strategy. We put a platform in place, and now they have mandates from their CEO that says before we go buy any other applications, we go through an analysis with IT to see if they can develop and deliver a solution on their platform before we go out and search other solutions. So obviously granting IT much more input and power in the organization to control and determine what solutions they're going to have to support. So very next question usually people ask is, okay, now what? How do I start? Where do I know? When we talk about enterprise service management, I want to get beyond IT. What's the next thing I do? And there's some really key areas, very common areas where an organization can usually relieve pain and get some quick champions, some non-IT business champions on their side. And so one is solving an email issue. There are, in every organization we see, there are lines of business who are drowning in email requests. And unfortunately, with email requests, emails usually get buried in a busy inbox, and they don't happen. They don't get responded to in a timely manner. And service for that specific request or that line of business suffers. The good news is that's not usually IT, that's usually a different line of business, but the better news for IT is that that's a perfect place for IT to come in and say, hey, we can fix that for you. We can get you out of email, we can present forms through a portal, and we can drive automation and escalation and notification and fulfillment processes through our solution that deliver specifically to your line of business. It's a great place to look. Another one is departments have email aliases. So if you have info at type things or facilities at types of inboxes where just general requests come into that alias, those, again, traditionally poor service levels associated with them, getting rid of those aliases and delivering that request fulfillment process in your enterprise service management solution is a great way to get some wins in the organization. You see some of the other ones there as well as far as where to start. Subject matter experts, that's another huge one. Every organization has the guy or gal who's been there for 15, 20 years and happens to know anything and everything about the infrastructure. And so whenever something needs to be changed, you got to get that person in the room. Well, we need to get that out of the organization and get that data in a place where everybody can access it and use it. And so this is another great place, another great opportunity for IT to get outside of traditional technology requests. And I think the benefits become pretty apparent there. I mean, we talked about some of the things it already does for IT, but I mean, it really takes advantage of tech-savvy users, their desire now to go to a portal, make the request, view the status of their request, see who's working on it, eliminates tons of calls, tons of unhappy customers who have emails sitting in inboxes never getting replied to, provides you an audit log with really good reporting. That reporting can be broken down by department, by line of business, by type of request. And it really improves, one of the things it does most is it improves the interdepartmental communication. One of the places we see this having the biggest impact, for example, is between human resources and IT, and specifically in an onboarding process. Every organization we go in and talk to talks about the challenge and the struggle and the frustration they have on the handoff or the amount of notice that is provided both to IT and to HR in the process of onboarding an employee. People don't get notified on time. Stuff doesn't get ordered. Someone doesn't even know. The guy shows up at his desk first day of work and no one has an idea that was going to happen. So there are processes like that throughout an organization that IT can say, hey, I want to be the champion. I want to take this on. I want to solve this problem and increase their value and leverage the fact that there are IT users today who are much smarter and are looking for those types of tools to deliver information to them. So really what it comes down to at the end of the day is that enterprise service management is not new. People have been trying to do this for 15 or more years. And what we've been able to do is figure out over the last 15 years or so all the different ways to not go about it, right? And now, if we go back to the three pieces converging at the same time, IT users are ready to adopt it. The business is looking at the user experience, and the technology is finally there that it's not going to get broken when you do it. Now is the time to create that better light bulb because we know all the areas to avoid. So with that, I am going to open this up to questions, and I am hopefully going to open the question panel to see if we have any questions in the portal right now. Bear with me a second to see if they have not been answered. Yeah, so I have a question here that says that that asks, what are some of the typical what would you consider a typical legacy system? So I think the question that's being asked is, okay, so how do I know if the system I am on is a legacy system? And I'm not going to I'm not going to name any specific vendors today because legacy, again, it has to be balanced against what your organization, how it operates, how much it's leveraging the solution out of box versus how far you're willing to take it. Are you coding? All those kinds of things. But I would just say specifically some of the things to look for is if you're on an application, you're having trouble upgrading the application to a new version because of enhancements that you've done, then you're probably on a system that's built on legacy architecture. And that's not a jab on those solutions. If you go back 10, 12, 15, 18 years ago when some of these solutions were first hit the market, that was the best technology at the time. And unfortunately for some of those vendors, they've had to now carry hundreds or even thousands of customers through upgrade, and so it becomes very difficult for them to do a wholesale rewrite of their application without losing customers. And so that is ultimately the give and take that a lot of these legacy vendors have to deal with. But there are solutions out there today that solve all those problems and get you off that legacy architecture. I don't see any other questions in the chat panel. So if anyone has a question they'd like to ask on the phone, you can hit your raise hand feature of the panel there, and we can unmute your phone, and you certainly are willing to ask a question. Otherwise, we'll finish up for the day. I do not see any hands raised. We'll just give it another minute or two, or second or two, rather. Nope, I think we are good. So with that, I thank everybody for their time today. If you have any questions, my email address is there on the slide, bsheridan@ampemail.com. Please feel free to hit our website, www.advancedmarketplace.com, and you can always follow us on Twitter or our Facebook or YouTube channels as well. Thank you all. Let you have some time back in your day and appreciate your attendance.